Jay-Z is on edge as a fresh investigation targets Diddy, who appears poised to cooperate with authorities. Insider sources, Jaguar Wright and Gene Deal, have confirmed Diddy didn't act alone. And now the Los Angeles Police Department is digging deeper, probing anyone who may have been connected to his network.
Clearly damaging to him.
Yeah, and I think there's like a famous quote from someone who was acquitted, and he said, all right, where do I go to get my reputation back?
Right.
I mean, social media was a light. Beyonce's next. Jay-Z's next. All the people in the inner circle is next.
Yeah, and the problem is there are just so many pictures of the two of them partying together, and it clearly was Diddy.
Over 100 civil cases are stacked against Diddy, and this Los Angeles probe marks the first to cross into criminal territory. His sentencing was far from the finale. It was the opening act of a larger unraveling. Diddy isn't going down quietly. He's made it clear that if he falls, everyone entangled in his web is coming with him.
Combs now facing new sexual assault allegations, this time from a man in Florida. According to ABC News, investigators in L.A. received a report from a police department in Florida where the alleged victim lives, and now they are working on the case. Eyewitness News anchor Mike Marza in the newsroom with the very latest details. Mike.
Well, David, here's what we know. The new allegations of sexual assault against Sean Diddy Combs come from a music producer who went to police in Florida, but the alleged crimes happened in Los Angeles. Jonathan Hay is his name. That's the person who filed the complaint, and he's one of the John Does that filed a civil lawsuit against Combs in July. The first alleged incident was in September of 2020 in L.A. Hay alleging that Combs performed sex acts in front of him and asked for oral sex. In a second incident, in 2021, Hay claims that C.J. Wallace, the son of the rapper Notorious B.I.G., took him to a location where two men put something over his head, he says, before Combs forced himself on Hay several times. Combs is currently serving out a sentence in Fort Dix, New Jersey, following his conviction earlier this year on two prostitution-related charges. Combs' representatives have not yet responded to this lawsuit.
Jay-Z has already moved past Diddy, and the chaos hasn't slowed. It's just got a new face at the top. Diddy was never the strategist. Jay-Z has been pulling the strings all along. With Diddy out of the picture, he's finally emerging from the shadows to seize full control of the empire he built from the ground up.
It's about the rest of them. Do you know they're still having white parties?
And whose honor? What?
Yeah, they're still having white parties. Michael Rubin is throwing them now. You know the guy that
we've heard those stories.
Bunny hops for?
Yeah, little baby. We've heard some stories. We've seen the bunny hop.
You know who he's cool with, right? Who he's very close with, Mr. Carter. So it went from Diddy's camp throwing the white parties to now the Jigga Man's camp is throwing the white parties. Interesting.
Diddy's sentencing was never the endgame. He was just a piece on a much larger board. His trial served as a diversion, giving the public a convenient villain while the true mastermind stayed in the shadows. Now, with his civil cases under scrutiny, it's becoming clear he wasn't acting alone. And the deeper investigators dig, the more evidence emerges pointing to others pulling the strings.
Like, that's the thing in this trial, the sentencing, the verdict, all the hyperbole, all of the pomp and circumstance, all of this, all of that, it means nothing. It means nothing. This was all done for the public's entertainment. This was all done to get people like me to be quiet. This was all done to give weirdos like Vladimir Lyuski and Torre the ability to constantly challenge and try to check my veracity, my actuality, my truth, and to get the public to not believe whistleblowers like me. That's why this was done. This ain't even about Diddy.
The victims never saw true justice, and they won't until everyone tied to Diddy is held accountable. One arrest changes nothing, especially when eyewitnesses confirm that some of the most powerful figures in entertainment were right there with him, giving orders, covering tracks, and keeping the cycle alive. The part no one wants to acknowledge is clear. Diddy was never acting alone.
Does Cassie get justice in all this? Does that look like...
Still not enough. Still not enough. And it's wild because she's getting such a better deal than Derek Lee Cordell Smith is.
30 million and your perpetrator gets 50 months? I mean...
Still not enough.
Jeez.
Her life is never going to be the same. And people are going to find ways to make her life complicated, to force her to have to spend that 30 million every way they possibly can. You know, there is no up. There is no win. Haven't I been saying that?
Video footage captured Jay-Z, Usher, Kevin Hart, and Diddy all at a freak-off party. Yet, curiously, no one else was ever subpoenaed. From start to finish, the trial felt like a farce. The feds had mountains of evidence but presented almost none, and even what surfaced was largely ignored. No charges were filed. Diddy was caught with guns and drugs at the time of his arrest, yet not a single drug or weapon charge ever stuck.
There's a woman, what is it called? Sprout to Success or something like that? Some kind of charter school, independent private school in Miami Gardens, which is right there in the area of South Florida where he's been warden for Satan of. Because he ain't nothing but a shepherd for the devil. But she was going to invite him to come to the school to speak to her students there, K through 12. Yep. You want to know what I find really interesting? All of these people that wanted to bring him to schools and bring him to this and bring him to that. How the hell are they going to do that when he's on the SEX offenders registry list? He's not allowed to be around kids.
That does make moving a little hard.
He's not allowed to be around schools. He's on the registry. Didn't I already do a tutorial about the registry? Like, I don't know that. He is a registered SEX offender, and people want to bring him to school.
So far, only one of Diddy's civil cases has sparked a criminal investigation. But as prosecutors sift through the rest, the situation is set to spiral. Once they notice the repeated names, familiar locations, and recurring patterns, ignoring it will no longer be an option. Diddy's 4-year sentence is just the opening act of what's coming next.
And any type of... He might be out by Christmas next year.
People say a lot of things. You know what else they said? They said he was going to get bail. How did that work? You know what else they said at the end of that trial? Even after he was found guilty of the Mann Act, they was putting together a 4th of July party. How did that work? People say a lot of things, don't they? I guess they don't hear God say no. I don't know what's going to happen to him. I'm not even trying to guess. What I am praying for, though, is that real victims and real survivors actually get the attention that they deserve, that they get the justice that they deserve. I'm praying that Derek is going to be able to get out of jail. I'm hoping that the interview that I do with him will be able to get enough.
Physical evidence links Diddy, Jay-Z, and everyone involved directly to their crimes. And just like Cassie's civil suit, the allegations and proof are enough to trigger a criminal case. That's why Diddy moved so fast to settle. One day after her case was filed, he caved. He knew a federal investigation could unravel his empire, and that's exactly the path it set him on.
Hoping that the other 100 civil cases will not just be left at civil cases and will actually be turned to criminal cases, because they should be, because I got a big issue with everyone thinking that money is the end all be all into stopping a predator from operating. It is not.
Amen.
It is not. Why do so many of these cases stay civil? Why aren't they turned criminal when there's criminal acts all through the pages?
Can you file a criminal charge and still get money off of a camera? Like, can you sue later, or is it strictly victims looking for money?
Simpson's family, OJ was acquitted, and they was able to take him to civil court and get him for bread. It really doesn't matter which way you do it.
That is true.
It can go either way. A civil proceeding and a criminal proceeding is just two different proceedings. But if you have criminal acts in a civil proceeding, just because someone gets paid or it gets settled and people get paid out, it doesn't mean that those acts shouldn't be tried criminally.
Those closest to Diddy saw this unraveling long before the investigation began, or the public glimpsed what was happening behind closed doors. Jaguar Wright and Gene Deal have been sounding the alarm for years. Diddy and Jay-Z are two sides of the same coin. According to Deal, Jay-Z matches Diddy's ruthlessness. He's just quieter, smarter, and more strategic in the way he operates.
Been the type of individual that want to have ups on the next person no matter what they was doing. He did the stuff to Ja Rule so he could go after Jay-Z. They not gonna come out and speak on nothing that has anything to do with them, and they praying that they not on the tape doing crazy stuff, being oiled up in the whole 9 yards. Until the Fed say, hey, yo, listen here. Hey, buddy, we got you on this tape, and girl looked like she was pretty young. We're not gonna show it, but we need you to come and testify against Brother Love. That's when they're gonna start talking. And they're not going to be talking in his favor. 250 cameras all over the house? Somebody got caught stealing a cookie out the cookie jar. When you that powerful, you didn't get that powerful without having 1 or 2 or maybe 3 ups on somebody. The people in power had gave that reign to Diddy, and Jay was next in line. So to separate him, when in fact, they may be two of the same, but because Jay-Z is low key, that low key sneaky shit, and Diddy is and was rambunctious, just out with it. It don't mean that they're not two of the same. One just a little quiet with his shit.
What happened at the basketball game? When they ran into, you guys ran into Jay-Z?
They was talking amongst each other about their little white girls. They little skinny white girls.
And I mean, did Diddy always say negative things about Jay around you?
The time he was trying to get Ja Rule to go at Jay, yeah. He was.
Diddy has now begun cooperating with federal authorities, actively assisting in their pursuit of Jay-Z, recognizing that this may be his only viable path to avoid prison. His legal team, fully aware of the precariousness of his situation, is aggressively negotiating with officials, pushing hard to secure a deal that could minimize his exposure and potentially safeguard his freedom, signaling a dramatic shift in strategy that underscores just how high the stakes have become.
Saying that Diddy was talking to the feds. Do you think that's true?
Whether it's true or not, and he might have been cooperative in some way, shape, or form, you don't get away with human trafficking unless you give up John Gotti or something like that. And that's not what happened here. I can tell you, Jesse, that this investigation's been going on for a long time, very closely held by HSI, so much so that even some of the agents on the raid a week ago today didn't know whose house they were raiding until they got there. That's how closely held this investigation.
Wow, because there could have been a tip.
Absolutely.
And there are allegations that he was paying law enforcement through his chief of security, which also happened to be Michael Jackson's chief of security.
I don't know if I buy into that. You know, people in Diddy's situation like to have those involved in law enforcement close to them. But that doesn't mean they're taking payoffs. That doesn't mean they're doing big favors. They like that closeness. It's just like how Diddy was able to court Diageo or Estee Lauder. He was very successful in doing that, and that made him a lot of money and gave him credibility outside the hip-hop rap world. And that's what he was trying to do here, a lot like what Epstein did with very powerful political.
Diddy's troubles extend far beyond the criminal investigation. The FBI has been actively pressuring him to cooperate, and now reports indicate that his release date has been delayed after officials caught him drinking in prison, a violation that jeopardizes not only his chances at the drug rehab program he had been counting on, but could also add more than a year to his sentence. Facing mounting pressure, Diddy appears willing to go to any lengths to shorten his time behind bars, even if it means betraying or turning on those who have been closest to him, making it clear that the stakes have never been higher and the choice is never more consequential.
Music mogul Sean Diddy Combs facing more time behind bars. His release date pushed back to June of 2028 instead of May of that same year. The news coming after reports of Combs drinking in prison, something he denies, after he was accepted into a rehab program in prison that could have reduced his sentence by up to a year. He's also been accused of making a prohibited three-way phone call from prison.
Combs' representative, Judah Engelmeyer, telling me by phone earlier today, Tom, that yes, a three-way call was made between one of Combs' lawyers, who did bring in another person on that call with Combs while he has been at Fort Dix, but that there was nothing improper about it. But again, that is not something that you were supposed to do at all. So those lawyers should have known better. As for drinking, he doubled down and said that Combs was not drinking and that in fact he's been admitted into this very specialized rehab program that Fort Dix offers is actually going to potentially lower his sentence. Yeah. He could be released earlier because of that. So they're saying he's done nothing wrong and that any reports that he has been drinking is completely not true.
Just last week, TMZ revealed that Diddy had been bragging to fellow inmates about a potential presidential pardon, fully convinced that Trump would step in to save him, a belief seemingly reinforced by his lawyer, Mark Geragos. But the landscape has shifted dramatically with this new investigation, making it clear that even if a pardon were somehow granted for his current sentence, it would offer no protection against the criminal probe that has only just begun, leaving him exposed to a legal storm far larger and more complex than anything a pardon could ever cover.
By the end of this week, we broke a story last night that Donald Trump is seriously considering commuting his sentence. And there has been a lot of fallout with our story.
By the way, commuting his sentence before he's even in a prison.
Right.
He's still at Brooklyn MDC waiting to find out which prison he's going to. But this is something that President Trump is considering, and the fact that he's considering it is causing a bit of an internal war at the White House because not everybody in the administration thinks this is a good idea.
So we are told this, and this is coming from somebody high up in the White House. We broke that story, incidentally, that right after the sentencing, his legal team, Diddy's legal team, got in touch with somebody who had the president's ear, and that the president was looking at the paperwork.
And the president acknowledged that
like 2 days later.
Yeah, in the Oval Office.
2 days later. Yeah. So we now know that Trump is considering. We're told that he's kind of waffling. He's going back and forth on this, but there are staffers in the White House telling him, don't do it. So we put this story up last night.
I know is everything that I read in that article looked accurate.
Well, look, that's probably some relief to Diddy's team, you know. And
I don't know. I think they're moving ahead. I don't think anybody is counting on anything, and
right.
I think the reporting was accurate.
How did you hear he's faring since sentencing?
I don't know. I mean, I hopefully we'll see him soon and find out.
I guess lastly, I would ask, what do you think his future looks like?
I have the utmost confidence in Sean. I think Sean will make a comeback the likes of which people are not expecting. So I've watched him over. I've known him for a long time. I have the utmost confidence in him.
In whatever sphere. I mean, he's done business, the music,
he's iconic in a lot of ways, and I think he'll make a comeback. I'll leave it at that.
Rumours are now swirling that the pardon Diddy had long boasted about might no longer be a viable option. Sources suggest that Trump was never truly a supporter to begin with, and with these recent prison drinking violations coming to light, Diddy may have committed the very misstep most likely to destroy any remaining hope of clemency, turning what once seemed like a potential lifeline into a glaring obstacle that could derail his legal strategy entirely.
You know, after his trial, a lot of people said he got a legal victory. It looked like he was going to be on his way out in a couple of years. How far back does this set him now?
Well, we don't know yet, Tom, because you still have due process rights in prison, right? So there's going to be an incident report if he, in fact, was drinking or there's an allegation. Then he's going to go to hearing. And if he's found guilty of it, then there's going to be sanctions. The sanctions could be that he could essentially be thrown in the hole, the SHU, the special housing unit. He could lose his privileges, and he could lose at least a minimum of 40 days of time credits, which is big. And I want to say this. Drinking in a BOP facility is as serious as committing murder in a BOP facility.
Is it really?
Yeah. As of 2020, the BOP changed the rules and reclassified drinking as one of the most severe charges in custody. So this is really serious if he actually did it.
To make matters even more precarious, civil cases are notoriously difficult to defend against, and any defeat could bleed directly into the ongoing criminal investigations surrounding Diddy. Unlike criminal courts, where proof beyond a reasonable doubt is required, civil courts operate under a much lower threshold, demanding only that it's plausible Diddy had involvement, an argument often sufficient for plaintiffs to secure a victory. Each setback in civil court doesn't just sting, it incrementally tightens the noose, steadily constricting his options and making it increasingly difficult for him to evade the mounting pressure of accountability.
The basics of these cases, Combs is facing multiple civil cases. How's the burden of proof different in a criminal trial compared to a civil trial?
Yeah, so for criminal trial, you've probably heard it on a lot of like TV shows. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt, amount of information that a regular, ordinary person with the duty of being on a jury would consider to be appropriate or important to determining whether or not a person had done something where there is no reasonable doubt to disagree with it. With a civil case, it's a much lower standard of a preponderance of the evidence, or in more layman's terms, more likely than not, the measurement we as attorneys typically use for that is 51%. And so for a civil case, you're just saying, hey, is there a 51% chance that Sean Combs allegedly committed these acts? If so, he would be liable. In the federal case, which was criminal, that was proof beyond a reasonable doubt, where he was found guilty of those two counts you mentioned earlier and is serving a 50-month sentence in Fort Dix, New Jersey.
This civil case could very well prove to be the breaking point. In July 2025, Jonathan Hay took legal action against Sean Diddy Combs, claiming that the entire ordeal started after he was invited to a warehouse brimming with Biggie's old belongings. According to Hay, once he stepped inside, Diddy deliberately isolated him, creating a situation that ultimately led to the alleged crime, turning what might have seemed like a routine visit into the centerpiece of a legal battle with far-reaching implications.
I hear Diddy on his phone, and I didn't know if he was on FaceTime or whatever, but I could hear it sounded like, right? And so I'm just like, I'm not trying to stare over at him and look over at him and all that type of shit, right? So I'm just kind of minding my business, but also kind of in tune to what Diddy's doing. Everybody's out in the other, rooms. The music is playing loud, that we did. And it's just Diddy and I in this room with all of Biggie's clothes. Next thing you know, it's like I look over and it's like this dude is looking on his phone and he's jerking off underneath one of the shirts. So I'm just kind of tripping, nah, maybe he's scratching himself. Maybe he's, it can't be what's going on. But sure enough, that's what he's doing, because he's like, as he's getting into it, he's like, yo, bro, finish me off. Just like, Nah, so, you know, he finishes off in one of Biggie's garments that he wore, and, you know, like a nut towel or something. And then he does his thing, and he walks over and he throws that on my arm. And I'm just like, holy shit. And he's like, rest in peace, Biggie. And walks out and laughs. And I'm stunned. I'm stunned because what the was that, right? And
now, the real question isn't simply whether Jay-Z has any involvement, it's how long he can convincingly keep up the facade of innocence before the cracks start showing. With Diddy trapped in a corner, frantic and willing to exchange names for his own survival, the pressure isn't just mounting on him alone, it's spreading outward, tightening around everyone who ever stood by, turned a blind eye, shielded, or directly profited from the sprawling empire he helped construct, making it increasingly impossible to remain untangled from the consequences that are fast closing in.